I'm Steven Roy Goodman, host of Higher Education Today. Welcome back to our show. I'm here in Interlochen, Michigan, where we're going to be speaking about arts counseling. Emily Umbarger is an academic and career counselor here at Interlochen. Diane Baribeau is the executive director of the City Opera House in Traverse City, Michigan. And Shelby Lewis is a teaching artist here in Traverse City. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, thank you all for coming. Emily, maybe if we could start with you.
Sure.
So could you say a little bit about what is arts counseling and how is that different from other counseling?
Sure. So here at Interlochen, we are surrounded by a community of artists. It's a really exciting place to be, which is different than a normal, typical four-year high school, where you have many students going into different career fields, whereas here at our school, we really focus on the arts. So we have musicians, dancers, creative writers, motion picture artists, and a host of other arts fields. What we do is we really try to focus on what the students want to do with their future career goals, which sometimes ends up being in just the arts and sometimes ends up being in something other than the arts. Mm-hmm. But here at our school, we really try to help focus on identifying if that's really where they want to go with their future goals, and if it is, how we can get them there. And if it's not, how we can use their arts to supplement what they're doing, because they bring something really remarkable into the world, and everyone wants collaborative thinkers and creative outside of the box contributors, and how they can bring those arts into their field regardless of which path that may end up being, even if it's not in the arts field. And, some of our kids, like I said, they go into arts fields and some of them decide to go somewhere else. And the kids that go elsewhere, they end up being lifelong arts advocates. And I think our world is, there's no too much of a shortage for arts advocates. So what we try to do is just meet each of them where they're at and then bring them along the way.
And fair enough. And Diane, if a student from Interlochen or elsewhere comes to the Opera House, what would happen to them when they're at the Opera House? I assume they could work there in different ways?
We have internship programs where they get credit for school. They can perform a variety of different ways. We have educational programs that they can be a part of.
And would they make a career out of some of these things?
If that's their passion in life, yes. There's other jobs besides just being on stage. Mm-hmm. You can be a technical person. You can be arts administrator, my role. There's a variety of different items you can do.
Well, that's an interesting point, and maybe if we can bring you, Shelby, into mm-hmm. this, because Diane's point about doing various things is something that I think would be interesting. So you've done various things, if I understand that correctly.
So many things, yes. I was an alum here as a theater arts major for 3 years. And having the counseling was so helpful to guide those interests of mine into a dream school. And from there I went to Los Angeles and New York and Paris and finally came back here because as I felt encouraged to explore what I wanted to do rather than just do theater and acting specifically, I've now found that this cumulative path has actually been to education. So I'm a teacher now, and I'm getting my Master of Arts in Theater Education, and work at Interlochen as a substitute for the Theater Arts department. And I feel like I finally found my path, and yet it's not. When I was at Interlochen, it's not as if I was going away from what I learned in high school. I felt open to continue exploring, honoring that interest, but then letting it evolve as I grew up.
Well, that's interesting because one of the things that I noticed about your background is that you went to Carnegie Mellon, mm-hmm. and that's a very well-known program for theater.
Yes.
So can you say a word or two about what happened to you when you were there?
Sure. Yes. It was a dream scenario. I felt very prepared in my college portfolio that I had enough backup schools, and Carnegie Mellon has always been the dream school for every theater major at Interlochen. And so I prepared as well as I could, but I wasn't expecting it. So once I got in, I played Juliet my senior year, and the guy who played Romeo and I went to Carnegie Mellon together. So that was kind of nice to at least have an ally in Shakespeare. But while there, because Interlochen is so intense and to me a college atmosphere, or at least a pre-professional one, I had 3 years basically of being in college already. So I actually had quite a bit of a learning curve when I got there in the opposite way. I had to let others catch up to me. And my because I had been trained and I knew who Arthur Miller was, and I had done Shakespeare scansion, and I had a lot of adulting to learn versus the training per se, even though it was a top program. It actually really surprised me how much I wasn't prepared for how much the personal transition would be, because I was used to all of these artists that knew everything that I knew. And then I had to meet 25 new ensemble members, which in theater is very intimate. So my first year was harder than I expected personally. And then the training ended up being above and beyond. It really was the dream school. But I was surprised by that.
That's interesting. And maybe if I could ask you about something that Diane just referenced a second ago, was the different careers that people can have. So at a place like Interlochen, maybe I'll ask all of you, at a place like Interlochen, people presumably all want to be on the stage or be the star of the new film that comes out. But there are other careers. And how do we, at one point, encourage people to reach for their dreams? On the other hand, to say, well, you know, there are other career paths, and without them being mutually exclusive.
I think that's something that we look at all the time with our students. And I think that that's something that we really encourage. I think that that's a great thing for students to do. And one way that I think is powerful in bringing that around is meeting other professionals in the fields right now and looking at their trajectory. And it's important for students to see that that model isn't linear. You know, it's not a straight line, that it goes around the rabbit hole a few times before they come into where they're at. And they're seeing that other people in their chosen fields, where they end up, and that it's completely fulfilling. It's an amazing career. For some students that decide not even to go straight into art, they go into a professional career, they're using those artist skills, their collaboration skills, some of their talents even, to feed into their professional careers in ways they never expected. So we try to model that by many of our faculty and staff on campus who are non-art faculty are also artists. You know, I was a clarinetist, and so I can relate to a lot of my music students and tell them my own journey. But we are bringing professionals onto our campus all the time. And so, you know, even for students not at Interlochen, I would say do internships. Go out and meet other people in career fields that you're interested in and see where their journeys have taken them. Because if anything, your journey certainly won't look the same. But you can learn that your skills and talent, your passion, can really take you somewhere that's marketable, that is fulfilling and rewarding, regardless of where you go. So to trust the journey, to trust your heart. It is very hard to come right out of college and find a job, you know, in your chosen art field. And you're going to face a ton of rejection, a lot of rejection.
But how do you counsel people for that?
That's really nuanced, Steve, because you have to encourage each of them that their journey is going to be different, that no two paths are the same. And so when I'm counseling them, I'm always thinking about, what is your drive? What is your passion? What are your goals? And how do you make sense of the world? How can you put that all together? And then also be open to knowing that your path may change. It may change 2, 3, 8, 12 times before you finally get out at the end. So in the meantime, learn your skills, learn the repertoire, learn everything that you can from your teachers, and then add your own passion and your own flair and allow life to bring you through. I believe that people that work hard will end up where they're meant to be. So you have to have a little faith in the universe to bring it all together too.
That's so true, Emily. And actually what I adored about my Interlochen Arts Academy education specifically was that, for example, senior year, first semester I was Juliet, which was a lovely part, and it felt like a height of my acting training up to that point. But then I kind of had my big role senior year. And second semester, I asked to be a stage manager because I had never done that before. And Interlochen is so good at creating those opportunities. And I realized at that point that I actually enjoyed it just as much as being on stage. Now it all makes sense with my teaching and directing finally being figured out. But at the time, it freaked me out a little bit because I enjoyed it so much and I thought I was only acting. And then when I went to a conservatory program, which I was grateful to be a part of, I could only act. And there was something that was difficult about that. Excellent training, and I wouldn't train it or wouldn't change it for the world. But it was all information, and I had to just trust that gut. And I think a collaborative, academic, and artistic experience that I had come from really allowed me to trust that. And even when I was Juliet, if I wasn't rehearsing, we'd go and build our sets. And I loved power tools more than I thought I would do. And so it was just all information, and I was really grateful for that.
If I could build on that too, it's, when you're thinking about college counseling, there's also the conservatory approach. At a pure conservatory, which is a school that focuses just on that conservatory training, as opposed to a conservatory at a university or a BA program, which is a conservatory style program. And so there are multiple venues when you're thinking about where you want to go to school. So, for Shelby at Carnegie Mellon, it's a conservatory at a university. But the beautiful part of that is if she wanted to take some other classes and explore other things, other venues, that she would have that ability to do so. And so there are lots of different approaches. And when I'm counseling students, I tend to play conservative on the line of saying, let's keep as many options open as possible. When it comes time to finally finish your applications, go ahead and make it very narrow if you need to. But in the meantime, while you're still thinking, I really want you to keep your mind open to lots of different options, because I want you to be able to change your mind if you want to. And I want you to have lots of opportunities for feedback from colleges. And then I want you to be able to make that decision, ultimately having made a really well-rounded decision. So I think one thing many students do when they come to us or they really love arts is they think, I just want to do a conservatory. And I think that that's right for some students, but it's not right for all students. And you can be a really amazing artist and still go to a school that has lots of opportunities outside of your art.
Yeah.
But how do you communicate this? That's I keep getting back to the same question. I hope you don't mind.
It's okay.
So I understand the concept, and I think a lot of viewers will. But I guess the tough part here is, how do you communicate that?
I communicate it by helping students create their college list that's in a really well-rounded sort of fashion. It's, for me, when you're thinking about creating your college list, I think like many of your younger viewers might be considering, it's always a trifecta. There is the part about where you fit artistically, and you need guidance from your arts people to help you figure out what that looks like. I can tell you all day long if you'll fit academically. I can tell you if it'll fit financially. I can't tell you if it'll fit artistically. So that one part of this whole triangle that we're really looking at is where do you fit artistically? And we have to rely on experts and professionals in the field to give us guidance. And when they guide you as a student, you have to really take it to heart, because nobody's doing you any favors if they're saying you're amazing, you'll get in everywhere, but you're really not. It might make you feel good in the moment, but not later. Then you have the academic side, and then there's the financial side, and then there's, those pieces I can help you with. And then there's the piece where it's a student family. If it's your dream to go to a certain school and your family has had 4 generations at that school, I'm not going to talk you out of it, but it probably has a place on your college list. So I think I always come at it from a very pragmatic side of, what can you afford? Where are you a good fit financially? Where are you a good fit academically? Where are you a good fit artistically? And keep all of your options open. And ultimately, we come up with this magical list of 5 to 7 colleges that meet all of those things in a perfect world. Lists are getting longer. Some of the trends in college today, the lists are getting longer. And students are being more conservative on their end because things are more selective. Colleges are more selective. And so there's so many moving pieces. Does that answer?
Thank you very much. And Diane, if somebody wanted to work at the Opera House, what sorts of, I don't know how large your staff is, but let's assume you needed a new associate director or an assistant director. What would be some of the skills that you would hope that somebody would bring to the table?
First off, I would hope they have a passion for the arts, because it's weekends don't matter. It's a 7-day-a-week job. You give up an awful lot if you like this business. So that's the first thing I look for. A good business head, calm, unflappable, be able to just do the job that they're assigned to do.
And would it matter to you that that person went to Carnegie Mellon or another school?
Would not. Wherever they went to school, if they've got the basics in them and they have a passion for what they're about to try to do, I think that suits them just as equally as the top-notch schools credential.
That's interesting because, as you well know, there's a lot of pressure for a lot of kids to go to certain name brand colleges. And one of the messages that I know people like Emily have been trying to deliver around the country is that, you know, it's okay and one can have a very fulfilling career at any number of places. And you're the executive director of a very historic place here, and to you, you're interested in, if I hear you, what you're saying correctly, you're interested in the skills that they're bringing to the table more than anything else.
Correct. Yeah. And their passion.
And their passion.
Yeah.
And speaking of the passion, Shelby, so how did you transition from when you left Carnegie Mellon, because now you had this degree,
Right.
But to Diane's point, how did you deal with the issue of the skills that you brought to Diane or someone else?
Sure, yeah. I went to Los Angeles. At the end of the program, you have an agent showcase. You go to New York and LA and pick your poison of where you're going to try and do. Because the interesting thing about the transition is that they prepare you to know what to do when you get the part, but they don't actually prepare. I don't know if any program really aptly prepares anyone to get the part that you then actually get to do all of these amazing tools or apply those tools to. So you're kind of just out there as an adult and you have all of this to give. And the first thing you have to figure out is how to market yourself, how to get across town in 30 minutes, even though it's an hour long, you know, of a drive. Or even just to get an apartment. Those kind of things are really, they have nothing to do with the arts. And you also have to really learn your industry. You have to, I took a lot of classes because I realized that I had been in a professional training program basically for 7 years. And then suddenly I didn't have any kind of a network. I didn't have any support staff, and I love to learn. And it makes sense now that I'm in education, but at the time I was really craving it. So I took voiceover classes, I took theater classes, I took film classes, and the more I continued my education, the more information I got. And I would say about the name brand colleges, my experience is that it opens doors, but once you get in there, that's about it. That's all it really does.
You still have to.
Exactly. So maybe within a stack and on paper, but then it really is about the person that comes in. I don't know of anyone who's actually gotten a job just off of their college name. And I don't know if you know that until you've been in a big name college and then you go out, you know, a Carnegie or a Juilliard. I will say that Los Angeles didn't care too much about Carnegie Mellon, in fact, because even though there is a long line of film and TV alums from there, they don't necessarily do film and television classes, at least when I was there. We had one kind of intensive about it, but not really that specific training, even though that's kind of where a lot of the fame has come. And then also the musical theater program that gets Tonys every year, you know. And I was in the acting section, which is the best, most incredible training that I've received so far. But it was a little hard to apply it right away because I didn't have jobs. My first Hollywood job was to play a 16-year-old on an extra at a Nickelodeon original movie directed by Nick Cannon. And so I had to, you know, hold a baking tray of cookies and look blonde. And then that was it. And I was like, this is what I got my degree for. Because suddenly, you know, we do this amazing range of ages of characters. Starting at Interlochen, you do Tennessee Williams, you do all of the big, amazing playwrights. But then when you get out in the business, you're 22. They're going to get someone who's actually 40 to play those parts. You are 22, and I looked I look super young anyway, and so I was playing, it's called 18 to play 16, so then I actually have to get a minor. And that was a huge shift for me because the arts that I had been steeped in, I suddenly felt like I couldn't do necessarily, and that's why I continued finding educational places, because I felt like that was a place I could reconnect and thrive.
That's interesting. And as a new teacher, how are you sharing some of what we're talking about with some of the students that you're interacting with now who are a little bit younger than you are?
Right. I feel that they feel the connection with me on that because I was so recently in the industry. I am able to give that advice more in, it's called a audition technique. The first semester, it's all of the seniors that are about to go to college and do the big auditions. And you can just see them being so terrified and wanting to find the right thing and all this. And my philosophy is much more about empowerment and individualism. And I say, what do you want them to know about you through these pieces, so that the monologues themselves are introductions to a side of themselves. So it becomes more personal rather than what is this place gonna like. Some of my college monologues, I still feel they represent me, and I pull them out of my pocket every once in a while. And those are the good ones that really resonate with you. I was just speaking to a student today who wanted to tell me about his Carnegie Mellon audition and how proud he was of it, because he was really solid on his pieces to the point that if he went to any college, whether it felt like a good audition or not, he knew that they represented him well. And that to me is an excellent audition, when you feel proud of it leaving the audition and feel like you have made a good impression. That's all an audition really is.
And speaking of the impressions, what impressions would you like people to get when they meet an artist out of context? So you meet a young artist, how do you want people to engage with that person?
So, I think that one thing that I find again and again when I interact with artists, young artists especially, is this whole idea of passion. They're extremely passionate individuals. They're passionate not only about their arts, though. That's what's really cool about them, is they're often passionate in really different or quirky or interesting things that connect them, and it brings this whole human level together. So I think one thing talking to young artists is learning about their passions. And to me, it's a joy to get to learn their passions. And we connect on really unusual ways because of that.
Do you agree with that, Diane?
I do. We don't teach at the Opera House, but we have a couple of arts education programs where students come in, they register to watch them come in that first day, and after the 6th day, perform on stage and watch the growth and the confidence level. It makes me teary-eyed every time I think about it. And I watch those kids and I talk to them and I see their excitement. It's just, you want to watch it and you want to help it grow.
And Shelby, what do you think about that?
I agree. I think it's really hard for 16-year-olds to declare the rest of their life. And when I really think about the college application, anyone to do that. But really, when college applications roll around, you have to start thinking about it junior year. And I felt a lot of pressure to hope that was it and pick it. And growing up in the American Idol generation of, if it's your passion, go for it. I really appreciate this mantra that your passions can change and evolve, and what you think it is now might not be exactly articulated. Keep exploring rather than deciding. And to me, college, I think, should be a playground for continuing that exploration, having a business class, having a painting class. I took a Chinese language and culture class because I just have always been fascinated by it. And especially in theater, it's the art form of empathy and humanity. And the more I can learn about it, whether it's technically an acting class or not, like Emily was saying, artists are citizens.
And before we close today, can we get to the issue of citizen jobs? So when you were here, can you, if you remember, think about, and I don't mean that it was hundreds of years ago, back in the day, but if you can remember what some of your classmates are doing now, what are some of their jobs now? Because you were out maybe 10 years ago?
15. Yes, I know I look 14 right now, but it does help me connect with the students, so I appreciate that. once I was in Los Angeles for 6 years, and a friend of mine she was on the improv circuit, and now she's on a television show with Patrick Stewart, and I was around her when she got the news that the second season had gotten picked up, and she had been bumped to a series regular, which is a huge deal. And I could not be more proud of her. I remember her as Paulina in The Winter's Tale, and that was my first Shakespeare show where I had 2 lines, and I just gawked over her and wanted to do everything that she did. And so to see her succeed finally was so huge. And another friend of mine who played Mercutio when I was Juliet was I was watching TV and he popped up on Gotham, the Batman series on Fox, and so I took a screenshot really quick and texted him and said, "Great job! I had no idea." And that's just been really fun. It's fabulous to see people that I adored and want to reconnect with if I hadn't, because once I moved back to New York, I got to see him and congratulate him in person. But there's this amazing network that happens with any kind of arts organization, and they're doing really well. They had a great foundation.
Fair enough. Diane, anything else you wanted to add?
I would just say that in my tenure at Michigan State University and here at the Opera House, what I take great pride in is hiring an employee, whether it's a stage technical person or an administrative assistant, and watching their path grow and follow this direction in the arts and stay with it and grow with that, which is rewarding for me.
Fair enough. And Emily, last word.
Yeah, I think I get the joy of getting to have them in high school, and then they come back every year for graduation, and so I get to see them grow, and they're in graduate school, and now they're in real jobs, and following their careers that way. It's always so magical to see that same passionate young person who is growing in wisdom and growing in experience, and many of them are still in their fields. Some of them have taken it a totally different direction, but I'll tell you what, I couldn't be more excited when I see my students having a broadcast playing jazz live, or who just did a recital at Carnegie Hall, or who was, the lead on this last ballet at Juilliard. It's so exciting to see them go into the field, and then become adults that are passionate and sharing that connection, that weave of connection, wherever they go. These are lifelong friends. So even if you can't attend a school like this, you can find that connection at your college or wherever you're going, your troupe or your ensemble, your orchestra. Those are connections that will last with you for a lifetime. And, whether you end up in that art field or not, these are the people that will help you out and support you.
You're still in the family.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you all. If you would like additional information about any of our guests today, please visit the Interlochen website or the Opera House website. If you have questions that you would like to send to me directly through the show, please do so at highereducationtoday@topcolleges.com. And thank you for watching. We will continue to bring you quality discussions about important matters in today's college and university world. I'm Steven Roy Goodman, and you've been watching Higher Education Today.